Good day, Deep and Word family. Welcome to day 14 of the Bible Study Review. So the chapters for studying today, it's going to be Genesis chapters 44 through 46. Now, where did we leave off yesterday? Joseph is having a feast with his brothers, all right? And they still don't know who he is yet. And they are confounded that they are seated in the position of their birth from oldest to youngest. As we open up chapter 44, we see that Joseph tells his servant, the servant over his house, to fill the bags of his brothers so that they can make their way back to the land of Canaan, right? And supply nutrients to his father. And not only that, they have children, they have wives back in the land of Canaan. So he fills them with so much grain. But what he tells his servant to do also is to put his cup, the cup that he drank from at the feast, inside of Benjamin's sack. Verse 4, and when they had gone out of the city, not having gone far, Joseph said to one over his house, rise up, follow the men, and when you overtake them, say to them, why have you repaid evil for good? Is this not the one from which my master drinks, with which he indeed divines? So yes, the brothers are caught by surprise, and they have no idea what the servant is talking about. And so they tell the servant, search their bags, and whoever it is that has the cup, may he not live, and they will be servants, slaves to Joseph. So the servant did as such. He searched all of their bags, from the oldest to the youngest. And yes, he found the cup in Benjamin's bag. All of the brothers tear their garments in agony because of what this means. They load their donkeys and they head back to Egypt. And Joseph said to them, what deed is this that you have done? Did you not know that a man like me indeed divines? And Yehudah said, that's Judah, what do we say to my master? What do we speak, or how do we clear ourselves? Elohim has found out the wickedness of your servants. See, we are my master's slaves, both we and he who also whom the cup was found. Verse 17, this is Joseph's response. Far be it from me to do this. The man in whose hand the cup was found, he becomes my slave, and you go up, you go in peace to your father. And Judah came near to him, and he said, oh, my master, please, let your servant speak a word in my master's hearing, and do not let your displeasure burn against your servant, for you are like Pharaoh. So yes, Joseph makes the brothers sweat a little bit, and he goes, all of you can go on your way. I will keep the one who took my cup in their sack. And of course, that's his younger brother, Benjamin. Yes, Joseph is trying to get back at his brothers, just a little bit. Judah then goes to clear an account with his brother, and he tells him about their father Jacob, or Israel, how much love he had for these two sons who came from Rachel. And he says, the one who is not anymore almost caused my father to die. And so the youngest one, Benjamin, he says, it would bring my father down to his grave if anything shall happen to this young one. So he's trying to stand in the place of his brother Benjamin to cover his father, so no harm would come upon him. As we open up chapter 45, we see that Joseph cannot take these words anymore, and he cannot keep up with this strife with his brothers. So he tells all of the Egyptians, everyone, his servants, he says, leave my presence so that he can be alone with his brothers. It's at this moment he cries out and he reveals who he is, and he tells them, I am Joseph, your brother. They are stunned. They don't know what to say. They don't believe these words. He asks them, is my father still alive? Is he still well? Joseph could not bear hearing that his father may die on account of Benjamin being bound with him. So he says this in verse 4, please come near me. And when they came near him, he said, I am Joseph, your brother, whom you sold to Mitzrayim. And now do not be grieved nor displeased with yourselves, because you sold me here. For Elohim sent me before you to preserve life. Verse 6, for 2 years now the scarcity of food has been in the land, and there is still 5 years in which there is neither plowing nor harvesting. For Elohim sent me before you to preserve for you a remnant in the earth, and to give life to you by great escape. If you don't see the Messiah in this passage, you're blind. Rip off those scales. He continues to say in verse 8, so then you did not send me here, but Elohim did this. Now, if we think back to when Joseph was a little boy, he might have been 15 or 16 at this time when he told his brothers this dream. But this dream was directly from Elohim. They hated this dream so much that they plotted to end their brother. But see, Elohim knew in advance that they would respond that way. Nothing surprises him whatsoever. He knew that Joseph would be bound. He knew that Joseph would be sold by his brothers. But it was Elohim sending Joseph ahead of them to save them. Yes, this directly parallels our Messiah. He sent Messiah into the earth to suffer great things. And yes, his own brethren sold him. And they thought that he might have been destroyed forever. But what they didn't understand is Abba already knew how they would react. Our Messiah was sent ahead to save the remnant. I love the story of Joseph because I see Messiah written all over it. Joseph continues to tell his brothers this, and he has appointed me. He's talking about Elohim. He appointed me as a father to Pharaoh and master of all his house and a ruler throughout all of the land of Mitzrayim. I'm going to continue reading from verse 9 to 11. Hurry and go up to my father and say to him, thus says your son Joseph, Elohim has made me master of all of Mitzrayim. Come down to me and do not delay, and you shall dwell in the land of Goshen and be near to me, you and your children and your children's children, your flocks and your herds, and all that you have. And I shall provide for you there, lest you and your household and all that you have come to poverty, because 5 years of scarcity of food are still to come. I want to pause here and direct you back to Genesis chapter 15, verses 13 and 14. Do you remember when Abraham was going through the ancient covenant ceremony with Elohim, that Elohim told him in advance that his people would dwell in a foreign land and they would serve this land, that he would judge this land and they would come out with many possessions? Well, all of Israel is gathering into Egypt right now. All of this is the work of Elohim. What he spoke back to Abraham is coming to pass right now. Let's jump back into chapter 45, verse 16. And the report of it was heard by the house of Pharaoh, saying, the brothers of Joseph have come, and it is good in the eyes of Pharaoh and in the eyes of his servants. And Pharaoh said to Joseph, say to your brothers, do this, load your beasts and go, enter the land of Canaan, and take your father and your household and come to me. And I give you the best of the land of Mitzrayim, and you eat the fatness of the land. You have been commanded to do this. So Pharaoh is commanding Joseph to command his brothers. This must happen. You see, this Pharaoh is a friend to Joseph. This Pharaoh loves the descendants of Israel. Let's jump down to verse 20 and see what else Pharaoh has to say. And do not be concerned about your goods, for the best of all the land of Mitzrayim is yours. This does echo the words of our Messiah. It kind of reminds me of when he says, do not worry about what you will wear and what you will eat. Why? Because he provides. Now, although this is Pharaoh, this is the plan of Elohim, to use an outside people to bless the covenant people. Because Elohim spoke it and he said, I will bless those who bless you, and I will curse those who curse you. Come on now. Verse 22. He gave to all of them, to each man, changes of garments. But to Benjamin he gave 300 pieces of silver and 5 changes of garments. I just want to pause for a second and take you back to biblical times. They did not have an array of clothing the way that we do now. To have 1 or 2 changes of clothes was enough for them. They usually had 1 pair of shoes, and they usually had 1 or 2 garments. That is it. So to supply his brothers with changes of garments meant that you were rich. People back then, yes, wore the same outfit, probably for a week at a time. So the brothers head back to the land of Canaan towards their father. And when they get there, they share the great news. And this is what they say in verse 26. Joseph is still alive, and he is governor over all of the land of Mitzrayim. And Jacob's heart stopped, for he did not believe them. But when they spoke to him and all of the words which Joseph had spoken to them, and when he saw the wagons which Joseph had sent to transport to him, the spirit of Jacob their father revived. And Israel said, enough, my son Joseph is still alive. Let me go and see him before I die. Now we walk into chapter 46, and this is what it says in verse 1. And Israel departed with all that he had, and he came to Beersheba and brought offerings to Elohim of his father Isaac, So before he made his way to Mitzrayim, Egypt, he stopped at the place where the altar is to make sacrifices. This is important to note because Jacob is so grateful now that he has heard his son is alive. And what does he do immediately? He comes to bring an offering of thanksgiving and praise. And the scriptures say that Elohim inhabits the praise of his people. So I want you to see what happens immediately in verse 2. And Elohim spoke to Israel in the visions of the night, and he said, Jacob, Jacob. And he said, Hineni, here I am. And he said, I am El, the Elohim of your father. Do not be afraid to go down to Mitzrayim, for I shall make you there into a great nation. I myself am going down with you to Mitzrayim, and I myself shall certainly bring you up again. Let Joseph put his hand on your eyes. There's so much to say about this right here because leaving the promised land was a hard task for Jacob or Israel because he knows this is the land which he promised his inheritance. So now he's telling him to leave, but he's reassuring him. He says, yes, be reunited. Go place your eyes on your son. Let your son touch you. Let your son be one with you again. It took great faith for Jacob to leave the promised land, but nonetheless, he was going to hearken to the voice of his Elohim. So Jacob, Israel, he gets up from that place, from that altar, and he continues on the path to Egypt. And he continues with quite the entourage. His family is huge at this point. And throughout this chapter, it lists the family and how many people are accounted in the family of Israel, of Jacob. So Judah goes out before the rest of his brothers and his father to meet Joseph so that he may know where this appointed place is in Goshen. So let's continue reading in verse 29. And Joseph made ready his chariot and went up to Goshen to meet his father Israel. And he appeared to him and fell on his neck and wept for a long time. And Israel said to Joseph, Now let me die, since I have seen your face, that you are still alive. And Joseph said to his brothers and to his father's household, I am going up to inform Pharaoh and say to him, My brothers and those of my father's house who were in the land of Canaan have come to me. And the men are shepherds, that they have been men of livestock, and they have brought their flocks and their herds and all that they have. And it shall be when Pharaoh calls you and says, What is your occupation? That you shall say, Your servants have been men of livestock from our youth, even till now, both we and also our fathers, so that you dwell in the land of Goshen. For every shepherd is an abomination to the Mitzrites. And that is how chapter 46 ends. But I want you to see that the Egyptians, yes, they saw shepherds, herdsmen, as abominations to them. And although this was the truth in their day, it didn't stop Pharaoh from showing favor on them. Again, because this is the plan of Elohim, and nothing is going to stop that. But please take note, peoples of different covenants, of different belief systems, do not dwell in the same place. And the children of Israel, the covenant people, were set apart in the land of Goshen. Now, Egypt is a picture of the world, okay? It's like a world system. But see, the children of Israel, i.e. the children of Elohim, are called to live set apart. Although we live in the world, we are not of it. I love the way this chapter ends because it ends with a happy family reunion. Let this be a great hope to you because this will be our story. You see, when our Messiah comes back and he blows that trumpet, all of us will be reunited to our loved ones who died in covenant. We will all come together and have this big family reunion. And our Messiah is going to delight in seeing the look upon our faces. Deep in Word family, that's all I've got for you today. I hope that it blessed you. I'll see you back here tomorrow for day 15. Until then, Yah bless.